Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Willy. Before we start the show today, I just wanted to announce we've been working on this for a while. Finally, the back-to-back Discord is up. There's a link in the description of this episode where you can go join the Discord, start chatting with everybody else who's listening. I'm going to be on there all the time. You can talk to me. You can go in there and talk about anything you want. I want this to be a hub for the community, for everybody out there listening. We can talk about the show. We can talk about artists who have been on it, artists you want to see on it. You can share resources. If you're a producer, you can meet other producers. It's just something I've been wanting to do for a long time. So if you're a Discord person, get on the Discord. If you're not into Discord, I'm going to be making a Facebook group for this show as well. Watch for the announcement coming for that probably next week. But for now, all my Discord people, hit the link in the description and come chat with your boy. All right, that's it. Let's get into today's episode.
This is Back to Back.
Yo, what's up, back-to-backers? This is Willy Joy. Welcome to the show. This is Back to Back. This is my podcast. I talk, you listen. Some other people talk to me, I listen. That's basically how podcasts work in general, just in case this is the first time you're ever listening to a podcast. You know, a lot of people like to make fun of my intro. I do it the same way every single time. You know, every once in a while I think about changing it, but I think we're just too far down the road on that one. You always want to be open if it's really time to switch things up, but I think it's also important to know when you just got to stick to your guns. And that's maybe a semi-awkward segue to talk about this week's guest. Finally on the show, it's happening. Zeds Dead is here. After several false starts, we finally made it happen. Shout out to everyone who's been asking for this episode. I'm stoked about it. And Zeds Dead just released a brand new album. It's called We Are Deadbeats Volume 4. And it features them working with a ton of artists who are either part of or friends of their Deadbeats collective, their record label. And it also happens to be really, really good. It covers a lot of ground, but still sounds really cohesive. The music is pushing a lot of boundaries, but still really sounds like them. They really managed to check off a lot of the boxes you hear me talking about on this show. I love it. You got to hear it. And there's a link in the description of this episode where you can go keep up with Zeds Dead, get the new album, see them on tour. All that good stuff is in the link in the description. Back to Back is brought to you today by the good folks over at Serato. And if you've listened to this show before, you've probably heard me talk about Serato. I've been using their products for a decade, and the one I want to tell you about today is actually one of their newest. I'm talking about Serato Studio. You know, you might know Serato from their famous DJ Pro software that you've seen a ton of your favorite DJs using when they perform live. But Serato Studio, this is for all the producers out there. Serato Studio is a brand new beat-making tool that I think every producer should try as the newest weapon in their arsenal. Serato Studio is great because it removes a lot of the technical roadblocks, a lot of the headaches you can run into when you just want to sit down and get an idea out as quickly as possible. The interface is really easy to use. It's really intuitive. If you've ever seen Serato being used or used it yourself, you'll recognize a lot of the components in here. And Serato's products, what they've always been really good at is making things that just work. They work the way you want them to work. And that's true for Serato Studio too. It comes built in with tons of loops, samples, effects. They've got some really cool things that I've never seen in any other software. Like with the click of just one button, you can change the key of your entire project. And like I said, it's pretty much all designed just so that you can go from having an idea to having a finished product as quickly as possible. It works great with whatever your main DAW is. You can start a beat in Serato Studio, get something down really fast, and then export stems really easily into whatever your program of choice is. And right now I've got a special deal just for listeners of this show. If you go to serato.com/studio and sign up for a monthly subscription of Serato Studio, use code WillyJoy2 at checkout to get 2 free months of Serato Studio. That's crazy. That's a ton of time. You can make so much music in 2 months. So go check them out right now. Serato.com/studio and use code WillyJoy2 at checkout to get 2 free months off Serato Studio. All right. So, for today's conversation with Zeds Dead, we had wanted to make this happen for a long time. I actually started chatting with Hooks from Zeds Dead because we play chess together online all the time. There's a bunch of us DJs who play chess online because, we're all huge nerds. And actually, I realized after a while that Zeds Dead, they used to do this video series of them talking to other DJs. They're all up on YouTube. You should go find them. They're really dope. So I always knew they'd be a great guest for something like this. And we finally met up in Philadelphia. I went over to their hotel room. Zeds Dead always has been a super inspiring group to me because they've managed to grow their whole thing, everything that they do, from the music to the events to the branding of it. They've gotten it to a really big level, but they've always stayed really true to their roots and their vision for the project. So we talked about that. We talked about their whole history. You know the deal. You'll get the whole story. We also laughed a lot. We also talked some shit about Star Wars. You'll hear the whole thing in a second. One note I did want to point out, when I was sitting down to edit this, what I discovered is that on Dylan's mic, only Dylan's, that's DC from Zeds Dead, there was some weird radio interference going on, and you couldn't hear this while we were recording. It was only after I sat down and listened back. Basically, every once in a while, when Dylan's talking, it sounds like somebody is simultaneously listening to the radio at a low volume. It's not bad. I don't even think it's that distracting, but you will hear it pop up a couple times. It's just a weird thing. I'm getting new cables, better shielding, all that kind of stuff, so this doesn't happen again. It's a weird issue. Never really happened to me before in almost 150 episodes of doing this. But anyway, just wanted to call it out so you didn't think you were going crazy. I always go to a fair amount of trouble to make sure these sound good for you guys, but I do record them remotely. It's a different situation each time, and this is just the fun of doing it on the road. And speaking of the road, later that night, I did actually meet a few different people who are fans of the podcast. It's always great to meet you guys in person, but for all the people who I haven't gotten to meet in person yet, I love staying in touch with everybody online. Do not forget to hit me up. My name is @WillyJoy on all social media, and the show is @BackToBackPod. If you want to help support the show, if you like what I'm doing over here, if you want to hear more of it, the best way to support us is by helping to spread the word. So keep tagging us in your stories. Keep putting up those tweets, letting other people know they should check out the show. Put them on to whatever your favorite episode is. If a friend of yours loves a particular artist who's been on the show, just link them up. And that is the best way to help us grow. It's the best way to help me keep making awesome episodes for you guys every week. And I'm always here for you too. You can always reach out to me. backtobackpod@gmail.com is the email address. If you have any kind of questions, concerns, something that's going on in your own life, if you're looking for some advice, if you just want to talk a little shit or complain about something, I'm always around. So hit me up. But for now, let's get into today's episode. It finally happened. This is me and Zeds Dead, back to back. Let's go. It's like, uncomfortable sex that I work out for.
Yeah. Pumping the iron.
Yeah. I was thinking while I was driving up here that touring, especially around holidays, you guys are probably starting like a New Year's run right now, right?
Yeah.
For the next few days. It's a weird thing, and this is not just for DJs. This is probably anybody who works in entertainment or service industry, but holidays always are so different for our line of work, Oh,
for sure, yeah.
Because it's less about let's celebrate this holiday instead of let's facilitate other people celebrating this holiday. Right?
Yeah. My family celebrates Christmas pretty hard, but I'm always just thinking about I'm going, in the next day or two. And it's like the biggest shows of the years lead up to New Year's. So this is our first 5.
Yeah, we're doing 5 New Year's parties. If I was on my own, there'd be 0 New Year's party.
Yeah.
It's that's the difference.
Yeah.
When's the last time you didn't have a big holiday show? Like, do you remember a holiday show that you had off, like New Year's or?
We haven't not done New Year's since the beginning of our career.
Really?
Yeah. The gigs pay well, Of
course. They pay really well, and you can stack them up.
Yeah. We're doing two shows on New Year's.
Yep.
On actual New Year's in 2 different cities.
Where at?
Phoenix and Denver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We play Phoenix, run off the stage, get on the plane, go to Denver.
Nice.
Not two midnights. 2 midnights would be cool.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. But for the second time in a few years, we're spending New Year's on a plane.
Yeah.
Remember when that happened in Australia?
Yeah, that was like New Year's kept going because we kept going in different time zones. They opened up champagne on the plane.
I was actually asleep.
That's so funny. Wake up
the
in a new year.
The excitement never stopped.
Oh my God.
I remember once I was touring in Australia for New Year's, and I was doing 2 shows on the 31st, and we were driving in between because it was just a few hours. And so we just pulled over to the side of the road at midnight and like popped a bottle in traffic.
Where was this?
This was they were both suburbs outside of Sydney. So one was like,
in Australia.
Yeah. Like Wollongong and some other suburb outside of Sydney.
Right.
Both a couple hours away. And then when we finally got to the second show of the night, which I was going to play at 3 a.m. or something, the cops shut it down like half an hour before I was supposed to play.
Shit.
That was New Year's.
It's definitely the most overrated night. Like, you go into it, you're like, I have to have so much fun tonight. And it's like, you end up having more fun on a random night.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you never know when you're going to have like a great night. But when you put too much pressure on it, like New Year's, you're just like, I don't know. I can't remember New Year's ever being like that spectacular, apart from the shows.
Well, no, I think there's actually, no, absolutely. I think there's actually, it's strange. We've played shows and we've tried to have parties afterwards and they've like miserably failed.
Yeah. Well, I think even that's true. I think just for playing a show in general, right? Like if you're building up a show in your head before you play it and you think, it's going to be the craziest, you plan out all this immaculate stuff. At least in my experience, it never goes to plan.
Oh, yeah.
And then some of the most fun shows are the ones where I don't even know anything about the venue, about the people.
You go in with no expectations.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, have you guys changed? You must have, but in sort of notable ways, have you changed the way you tour over the years? Because I have to think at this point with, the level that you're at, you can kind of pick your spots a little more. You don't necessarily have to grind it out as much.
Yeah, we spent like the first 5 or so years of touring just nonstop, and then I think we had a dinner, I remember, and I was like, I think we can like take some time off because we've sort of been just going, and like it always just.
I was like, really? That's an option?
Yeah, it gets like scheduled, and you have to like plan out so far in advance, and then before you know it, you're just like haven't had any time at home in 5 years.
Right. And
we were like, maybe we should take some more time off. So I think we started taking a little more time off like 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know. But now it's like, we're, trying to be in the studio as much as possible and balancing it with playing the shows. But it was definitely like essential to our development that we went as hard as we did in those first few years.
Yeah.
In what way? Like, how did
just
that
like
shape you?
our whole following is like, it's very based off of the shows as well as the music.
Yeah, we were
kind of like hitting all these cities like around, North America.
Yeah, being everywhere always.
Right. Yeah, and especially probably the second market cities or the smaller markets, making sure to hit everybody.
Yeah, we were doing tours that were like just hitting everything. And
yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense because when I think about sort of where you guys sit in the general music scene, I do tend to think of you as kind of having your own little world and not necessarily being, a part of a bigger movement. At this point, I think you've established your own movement, but that makes a lot of sense to me that it was sort of being built as you went in those early years. Yeah. I feel like people just follow you guys separate from the rest of the scene.
Yeah, and I don't know, I can't speak for both of us, but personally, like I take great pride in that, you know. I think we both do. As time goes on, it blows me away more and more, like how hardcore our fan base is, and we're still traveling for our shows. Like I just saw, we did this 4-show run in Chicago the other weekend, and someone did a poll, and they polled where everybody came from the shows from, and they were like from far and wide.
Wow.
You know? Yeah, like 5-hour, 6-hour drives.
Which makes sense too, because if you are sort of picking your spots more and making each show more of an event, right, then I think that sort of makes people really want to check it out.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're not like mainstream successful like at all, but we have this cultish following.
Right.
And, you know, play these big shows that, it blows our mind all the time. Because like, you know, people who are way more famous than us, you know, like they're not as many people sort of like come to see them, and that's like crazy to me.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think that's maybe just a note on fame in general, right? That it is not always long lasting unless you're actively working.
No.
I'm cool with it though. Like I feel like the level we're at, if we were more famous, I feel like you get more haters, you get more like disagreements, but when you're kind of like underground, people look at you in a positive way. They like want to see you succeed. I think when you get too successful, people are like, you used to be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we get that now anyway, a little bit probably, but like not as much as some.
You can't avoid that shit.
Oh, of course.
I mean, like I try not to. Sometimes you see something and it like can mess with your day because you can see like 100 good comments and like one bad one, you're like, you motherfucker.
Yeah.
It's just,
I mean, of course, that's the one you're going to remember.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what it is? It's like, for myself, I think I'm like a bit of a perfectionist. So it's like you have these kind of internal voices in your head that are like, oh, was it good enough? You know, I could do better. So when you see a bad comment, it's like, it kind of echoes that, like that shitty side of the bad Jiminy Cricket, you know?
Right. Oh, absolutely. Because we're all our own worst critics.
Yeah.
Right?
But that's also what pushes you to try hard, you know?
Which I think about that too, because there's a few people that I know that I'm sure you know too that aren't like that, who just really are their own biggest fan. And I mean,
there's a lot of rappers like that.
Oh yeah, rappers for sure. I always wonder what it would be like to have that mindset and not to just think that you're never really doing quite good
It seems
enough.
like a wonderful existence. You know?
In a way, yeah. Sometimes I wonder if that's just like a defense mechanism for deeper insecurity.
Yeah.
I mean, or they're just super happy all the time. I don't know.
That's like that Joel Osteen guy. He's like, you know, he says he's happy like 24/7.
Is that what he said? I always avoid that dude whenever I see his name.
It's the only thing I know about him. I saw him on TV once, just like someone was like, you're not really happy all the time. He's like, no, I am. And it's like, all right then. I don't know.
I mean, I guess that's hard to argue with.
Like, you know, there's experiences that I haven't had, but I don't know. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I can't either, man. I mean, would you guys say at this point, you know, if you look at sort of where you're at now, 2019, almost 2020, this point in your career versus other times in your career, either at the beginning or somewhere in the middle, are you happiest now? Was there a time when it was more or less fun?
I have two thoughts on that. Yes, I think that this is one of the happiest times of my life. I feel like very secure in our creative space. I feel like we're comfortable to fully do whatever we want creatively, and we have a lot of support behind us. So that feels amazing. I mean, we always did that regardless, even when people were hating. But I just was watching this interview with this new long interview with Drake, though, and he made an interesting point. He said, like, I think every artist who has a decent run inevitably looks back fondly on their, like, who is this moment? You know what I mean? And I think there's truth to that, too. Like, there's a moment when people are figuring out about you and getting excited. So that's a super exciting time as well. But
that first come up. Sure.
It's this frenetic kind of energy. People are discovering your music and showing it to their friends and stuff like that. But also what comes from that is people feeling great ownership of your music. And then that's why they get pissed off when you do other stuff. So
Right, of course, because they remember that time too. And I think especially early on, your fans or people who like what you do, whatever you want to call them, they can really feel like so invested in you.
Yeah,
right?
it's part of who they are.
Yeah,
time, you know? And
you're all kind of coming up together.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, you know, obviously we couldn't do anything we do without the support of people who listen to us. But I agree with you. I think there's something about that early time, the people who are with you or supporting you at that time. It's a different kind of support. It's a different kind of love.
Well, I remember feeling it about other artists artists,
Oh, yeah.
That exciting. So
absolutely. I mean, that's actually maybe a good way to talk about some of the early years, because I became familiar with you guys when you were throwing the Bass Mentality parties in Toronto. And that was my first perception of you, was that you were two guys in Toronto. You threw this party, which was a monthly?
It was bi-weekly.
Okay.
So every other week. Yeah, like we weren't getting any good bookings at the time. Like, I mean, we just sort of started, but nobody wanted to hear us play any sort of like interesting underground music. It's like we could get booked playing like top 40 sort of stuff. So we were like, we should start our own party. And with the Kilobits, this other group from Toronto, we did this. It was called 751, and it was like this basement that we would get every Wednesday. And we would like rent the sub and bring it in. It was like the first time there was like nobody there. It just kind of like built over the course of like a few months, and it just got crazy
pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's like kind of sort like it was the only place maybe that you could hear, one of the only places you could hear like dubstep. It was sort of like dubstep, electro house, drum and bass, and like it was good for us because that was like where we learned how to sort of be DJs.
Okay.
Play to a crowd.
You guys hadn't really been DJing much, if at all, before that?
Like before, but not like I said, like the underground sort of music.
Right. And
that was like a good thing for us, like a learning ground. And then we outgrew that place and we went to this other place called Wrong Bar and we started booking other acts. I don't know, like it was, it became the biggest sort of underground bass party, what you want to call it. Probably people would call it like a dubstep party, but we were always kind of fighting that. And even in our own career, we were kind of like always fighting against the label of that. Yeah. Cause it was like some of our most successful early stuff was dubstep amidst like a bunch of other genre stuff. And then, we were always trying to like show people we were more than that. I think now, people look at us in a more broader sense, some of the fans, but I'm okay with whatever as long as they're like listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, just the term dubstep has changed so much in that time too, right? Because I have to imagine, you're talking about the underground sounds that weren't really being championed in Toronto. And this is what, mid to late 2000s?
This was 2010.
Okay, yeah, right in there. So yeah, the sound of dubstep back then, I mean, it's almost unrecognizable in some
absolutely,
ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we always loved the old school stuff, the stuff that was more rooted in like dub reggae, like deep bass, garage, whatever. And of course, like progressions of that and stuff. But to this day, Scream, Roscoe, guys like that, Burial,
100%, yeah.
Mallet, Digital Mystics, shit like that.
Yeah. It's great that I just saw Roscoe play a set like a month ago, and I hadn't seen him probably in at least 5 years or more. And he was dropping some of the old classics, not new edits or remixes, just the old shit. And man, it was so good.
Yeah, it's fun, right?
Oh, it was so good. And it's crazy because, I mean, we all played so much of that. We were inundated with it at the time, but I had really forgotten what it sounded like at the club on a big system. It really is a different experience.
Yeah.
He's dope. He definitely inspired us with his dance moves as well.
Oh my God. He's still doing them.
Yeah. And we released
that's right.
music of his on Deadbeats, so that's really cool,
Yeah.
Things come
It's
around.
been
like
awesome
that.
to work with him for sure and play with him. It's like kind of full circle.
Have you gotten to get to know him a little bit?
A little bit, yeah. He's a great dude.
I've never actually gotten to talk to him, but he seems like just a character. I would love to have a conversation with that guy.
Yeah, you should get him on this.
I've tried. I'm told he doesn't do interviews, but I think we're working on it.
I'll put in a good word for you.
Yeah, when I say we started DJing around that time, it's like we were producing for, I don't know, 5-6 years prior to that.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Sort of dabbling in DJing a little bit. It was around that time that I'd say, like, learned mostly. Dylan had, like, the turntables in his house, and we would, like, mess around on those and practice. And
how old were you in that time?
I want to say, like, 17 or something.
Okay. Yeah. Late end of the teens into the 20s.
Yeah. That's a great time to
do
anything musically.
I think Zeds Dead is it's been 10 years. It's into its 11th, I guess.
Wow.
And we're 31. So we started Zeds Dead when we were 21. And prior to that, we were kind of working up to that.
Because you guys were doing like hip hop production prior to that, right?
Yep. Oh yeah,
always
that dates way back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was it always together, or were you guys working separately?
No,
first?
like we sort of joined forces at a point. Like we were like, making music and showing each other a lot, and we kind of had the same taste for that style of hip hop, and it was like listening to music together, and then like showing each other the stuff we'd made and critiquing, and then we formed this group called Mass Productions, or MP Records, and it was just like we would rap actually at the time.
Oh, there you go.
Just sort of like freestyle and stuff, and we put out this album called Fresh Beats. It was an all instrumental album, and we tried to sell that like by hand. Like we went and got the CDs copied at like the Duplication Depot. There used to be these like ads for it's like, get your CD copied at the Duplication Depot. And like we went there.
A lot of explosions.
Yeah, so I remember trying to sell that at school and stuff. And
that's so awesome. That's like
putting up stencils around town with our logo.
One of them is still there, I think, to this day.
Really?
Yeah, there's like one phone booth in Toronto that has
it. I just love everything you're saying is transporting me to that moment, because a group called Mass Productions, an album called Fresh Beats, duplicating your own CDs. I know exactly the era you're talking about.
And
this was MySpace, this was just going into MySpace. There was no other platforms at that time.
Right.
And Zach actually helped design a kick-ass MySpace for us that they eventually fucking took down.
I was trying to like do some web design stuff at the time, like some graphic design. And basically all that culminated with learning the coding for MySpace. So we made like kind of a nice one.
Yeah, I remember it was huge if you had a friend who could do that for you with the people I was with at the time. There was like the one guy who knew how to code
I thought you meant like
pages.
the friend, like the top friends.
Oh, there's that too.
That was a big thing at the time.
That was
being on like someone influential's top friends.
Oh man, that was a huge
In fact,
thing.
I think Drake's top friends was like a highly coveted one at the time.
Oh yeah, did you guys, was he just running around in those circles at the time? Like, did you run into an early Drake?
Well, he went to like school with him at a younger age.
Elementary school.
Really? That's so funny.
He lived around the corner from me, but in his ascension to rap dominance, no.
We had some sort of a connection once where apparently he was writing to one of our beats.
Yes.
And then
I was just talking about this the other day.
I don't know what happened. It was like the guy who connected us with him.
I was trying to remember that guy's fucking name.
Yeah, he wanted us to remix his song.
He wanted us to write original tracks for him.
Yeah, and we were like, "This is trash." Like, and then we got on those words, but it wasn't doing anything for us.
And it was too big an ask. It was too big an ask for just making the intro to 40.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden that writing session dried up.
I think we actually got blacklisted from OVO.
Oh, shit. It's just funny to hear, because I've had other people from Toronto on the show before, and to hear about sort of what the scene was like back in those days versus sort of what it's become now. Like, just to hear people talk about it, seems like it was sort of like a family feel for a long time. Just in the sense of, not Drake, but like you guys talking about the underground, and that, the party got popular quickly. It seemed like there must have been a desire for it that wasn't being filled.
I think like dubstep was just in this phase of curiosity, and like people were like looking for something. Like it was just this different thing, and we were hitting like the younger crowd at the time. There was, I don't know, it was like a movement. It had been big in the UK, but it had just started to kind of like crop up, and people were like, "Oh, I'm like, what's dubstep? I'm gonna go like check out this party," and we got like a lot of that sort of curiosity.
And it felt like the birth, over here. So I actually just met some kids on the plane that were sitting with me the whole time over here, and they were like, "That was the start for us." That was the start of like dubstep. Like that was my first coming into awareness over here.
There was another dubstep party, but it wasn't like, I don't know. Ours sort of attracted more younger people because drum and bass was a big thing in Toronto, and sort of dubstep was like an offshoot of those parties.
Sure.
When I first started noticing it, But ours was like a whole different group of kids.
Well, how did you guys get into electronic music if you were coming from a hip-hop background?
It was drum and bass for me.
Yeah.
The thing that really bridged it was realizing that I was producing already, and drum and bass was double the tempo of hip-hop. So hearing like Shook Ones over, a drum and bass beat or Method Man, like that was an easy gap filler. And then I was like, this is cool. Like at first in high school, I was like, fuck all electronic music.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
I thought it was
like
all
hip-hop.
like bro beats.
Techno, I just called it all techno.
On the Civics.
Yeah. Gino beats.
Yeah, Gino beats. But yeah, hip hop, I mean, drum and bass had that hip hop attitude when I first discovered it.
Well, I was about to say, do you remember like there was a time when I want to say it was Raucous was even putting out drum and bass like hip hop records? Like you remember that Mos Def Pharoah Monch track, Oh No?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
They put out, I'm almost sure of this, Raucous put out like an official John B. drum and bass remix.
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember Adam F. was doing...
oh, sure. Yeah, he was on
doing
it.
hip-hop stuff, remixes and shit.
He did some tracks with Redman.
Yeah.
That's right.
And we did a track with Redman recently.
We did.
That was crazy.
With JCO, right?
Yeah.
1,000 volts. I just saw JCO. I was talking to him about that project. It's got to be so strange to actually have somebody like Redman in your group, not just on a track,
It was crazy. When we were over at JCO's place, like playing beats, and Red was just there smoking blunts and actually fell asleep while we were playing beats.
That's perfect. I wouldn't expect
I don't know if he likes it. But yeah, he's the man. He's one of our all-time favorite MCs, and to get to do a track with someone like that.
Yeah.
He's
great
incredible.
Like with
too.
drum and bass, like when I first discovered it, I just looked up on LimeWire drum and bass.
Sick.
And then I just downloaded whatever I could. Mostly Aphrodite was what came up.
Ready or Not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was my intro. I know Dylan went to a drum and bass party in Toronto.
Right at the tail end of the scene. Like they said that Toronto did have, this is what I've always heard, is that they have one of the best scenes outside of London.
Yeah.
For D&B.
I've heard that.
Jungle and shit. Yeah. And there's some famous tapes from back then. Like in Toronto, the college radio for U of T, 89.5, there's a wicked famous tape from there with Shy Effects and a couple other people. And then, I don't know, a bunch of dope records were cut. And there's some cool guys championing it till this day. But one of the first shows I went to was one of the last shows at this venue called System Soundbar, and it was Skibbity, Kenny Ken, I think.
Oh, amazing. Skibbity.
Nicky Black Market or something? Mickey Finn? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Skibbity, I'm obsessed with MC Skibbity, man.
Yeah.
I always have been. That dude, I don't know what happened to that dude, but I've been debating trying to find him and get him on a track now. You guys just put out a drum and bass track too, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of...
we love D&B.
Yeah.
And we've been playing in our sets. One of our first releases with Mad Decent was a drum and bass track.
Is that right?
Under Your Skirt. Yeah, we sampled a Movado record and ended up clearing it, which was a crazy process, actually.
Well, I have to assume... Well, let's talk about it, because I have to assume Mad Decent and Wes were at least a little helpful with that.
Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, we assumed he had, the Connect in Jamaica, and so he made it happen. But it was there's some crazy shit going on.
Something bad happened.
And basically we're just is he going to sign? Is he going to sign?
Yeah. Yeah, that's... I mean, anytime real life stuff like that gets in the way, I do wonder, how many records have been just shelved because of stuff like that. Kind of life stuff gets in the way, and you can't always put out a record when you want to put it out.
Yeah.
And
there's got to be tons of records on the shelf for sure.
Have you guys shelved any that you really wish you could have put out?
I mean, there's tons of samples that we'd like to clear.
Yes,
Sure.
yes, definitely.
We started taking it easy with sampling, actually. That was our first... When we started, we would sample stuff the same way we would do with hip hop, but we would call it a remix, right? That was kind of a different era.
Yeah, I mean,
the ability to even put that shit out.
I know, man. I miss that era because I come from a sampling background too, and I still love doing it. But I think especially for newer artists, I mean, labels won't even talk to you if there's samples in your music.
And that's there's so much good inspiration and sounds and potential in that stuff. I mean, we still sample stuff a lot. It's just a lot of it doesn't see the light of day.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I'll still sample if I feel confident enough that I can kind of bury it or that no one would ever know. But
I mean, it's just, it's an endless hassle.
Yeah.
What was that one? For our track Adrenaline, we cleared the sample by AZ.
That was Do or Die, I think.
Like moving night like truckers, when suckers see us, they duck us.
Yeah.
And just that little snippet was like we had to pay, and
there was like 10
took like a
producers
bunch
on
of
the
the
record.
publishing, and it was owned by somebody else, and that person died, and then we had to like find their estate.
Yeah.
And it's like, might as well just fucking scrap it. But we had been playing it out.
Yeah.
It's the same with all these tracks that we've cleared. It's just like, because we've been playing it out and it doesn't sound the same without.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You can't just rap it yourself. It's not going to have the same vibe.
Yeah, no. we tried that too once.
Oh, yeah, because we did. We had to recreate some shit on the bus one time because our song got used in one of the Step Up movies.
Okay.
But it had like a sample. I think it was
it
like
had like
Fat
a million
Man's
samples in it, but like,
but
one of them was not
wait
good.
a minute.
Yeah.
And we all did it and tried to pitch it so it didn't sound so horribly white.
Yeah.
And like
you doing Fat Man's
It's funny because like we're actually in the movie. Like our voice.
Really?
Because that
made it?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Tried to get everybody involved.
Oh man, that song had so many samples. There was like Tupac. There was like all this other shit that I'm like, why did I put this in?
Right, yeah. Out of all the things
now,
they could have put.
Yeah, now it's different.
You were just free, man. You were free. You were out there just making music.
There was, Hype Machine. There's all those blogs.
Yeah. SoundCloud didn't give a shit what you posted.
Yeah, now
there.
it'll get taken down.
Oh, immediately, yeah.
It'll get like a whole mix taken down.
I know.
We'll get our own records taken down.
Yeah, that's actually the worst. Most of the shit that we get taken down is because it has one of our songs in it. It's like, you do not have permission. I'm just like, yes, I do. I give you permission. Yeah. What do you need from me?
Yeah, it's me.
Can I talk to the computer? What do I
exactly.
Yell into the speaker?
Yeah, voice activated.
Yeah.
I once had a CD tell me that I tried to burn one of my songs onto a CD and it said it said consult the copyright owner. And I was like, but I am the copyright owner. And what would happen if I consulted myself? Like, then who do I tell? It's a CD burning software.
That's where you get the computer into a logic puzzle where it just starts smoking and then it explodes.
Down.
Yeah.
Burning CDs, that dates us.
Yeah, really, yeah. I've been there too, though, man. Yeah, I went to a duplication plant, all that kind of shit. Selling CD. I mean, I was talking to, last time I had Wes on the show, he was talking to me about his hustle selling CDs out of the trunk of his car and how he learned that from like the down south rappers and just how much money you could make off of it back in the day.
Yeah, that was a good interview, and he was saying he made like, I can't remember how much, but
he said he made a lot of money.
Did you ever make money selling CDs?
Yeah, right, tax free. Did you ever make money selling CDs? I never made a lot of money.
No.
Yeah.
We covered our nut.
Right.
I mean, we'd realized that people gave away their music a certain way. I mean, showed people music on the internet and there was we didn't think there was any money in it. So we were just like, we're going to put everything up for free. That was like our first thing. So it took us a while before we had to, release things and be like, okay, let's get stuff in the stores. And
how long did it take? You're putting stuff up for free. You're throwing the party in Toronto. Eventually, you start bringing DJs from other parts of the country. I assume you start meeting people through that and through the music you're posting online. How long did it take before you really felt like, the wider scene was aware of what you were doing? Was there any kind of like breaking point, or was it sort of a gradual?
Well, when Scream played the Eyes on Fire remix on his radio show, that was like crazy.
Yeah,
holy shit.
That was a crazy moment I remember that actually. And then we went to the UK to tour.
Yeah.
Not too long after that.
This guy Kissy Sellout.
Oh yeah.
I shouldn't say this guy. TJ Kissy, you know who he is.
Yeah. No, but he's been quiet. I don't know what he's doing now.
Yeah. He was playing our stuff on BBC.
Yeah. He was great.
Respect to that dude. He's the man for helping us out in the early days.
Well, and he was always championing weirder records, underground records.
Yeah, he did.
He had a prime slot for to be able to do that with,
Yeah, we did some mixes for him and released Rude Boy on his label.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was like one of our first releases. But yeah, when Scream played that was like huge because obviously that was, the world that we were listening to.
Your idols, right?
Yeah.
We didn't know, that those people knew about it. We had been sending stuff to blogs. Blogs had been posting stuff like on their own. We knew that people were listening.
Right.
But, there was like an elitism back then too.
Yeah.
Kind of like in the drum and bass world and the dubstep world a little, I guess, like just... It was cliquey. I don't know. Like we felt outside of it for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of it was UK based, right?
Yeah.
And it was a UK clique. Not to mention, I think, back in those days, which is funny because it wasn't actually that long ago, but it feels like another lifetime. Yeah. Back in those days, at least for me, I was in Chicago doing a similar thing, throwing a party, putting songs up online. And I didn't have so much of an awareness of what was happening globally because all we really had was blogs and MySpace. There wasn't this sort of constant social media presence where you always knew what everyone else in the world was doing. And so I think it was easier to kind of be in your own bubble back then.
Well, yeah, I think that actually has a lot to do with how dubstep was a scene because it was in that one area of London, Croydon, and it was kind of like this local thing. But now it's like there's no... I guess there are, but it's like there's not as much sort of geographical scenes. It's like worldwide because of the internet.
Yeah, which is...
It's a good thing, but it's interesting when, a city has a sound or like an area of a city even.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I do kind of miss those days. And I think it's more nostalgia than anything else because I agree with you that it's great right now and you can kind of learn about anywhere in the world immediately and it's giving opportunities to people who wouldn't have had opportunities. But there is, I think just because it's the way I came up, I am nostalgic for... simpler times.
Well, it's like this. I noticed this with graffiti too. It's like there used to be like a East Coast style and like a West Coast style and like a Euro style and stuff. And then now it's like anybody anywhere is doing any style. It's no longer regional.
Is that right, man? Because I know nothing about graffiti other than that I love looking at it. And so that's really interesting to hear that it kind of went through a similar thing.
I think that the internet has just made regional styles almost disappear.
Yeah.
It still exists, but it's more of a stretch. Like a lot of, New York rap used to be a specific sound.
Yeah, true.
People coming out of New York aren't necessarily rapping like that East Coast style. I mean, A$AP Rocky and all those guys, that's like kind of more of a down south influence, I guess.
Right.
There's like...
Yeah, last one was maybe, Bobby Shmurda or something?
Yeah, it happens. There's definitely like a sound that influences people, you can tell...
Actually, that was a stupid thing to say. There's been people way since Bobby Shmurda that sound like New York.
But it's more, I'd say it's disappearing.
So how did you, we were talking about Wes and the Mad Decent connection. I feel like that was sort of another level up moment when a broader section of people became aware of you guys. How did you link up with Mad Decent originally?
Yeah, that was huge too. We had been listening to Mad Decent podcast and we were like a fan of Diplo back then. And, we gave a CD to him at a show and he's like, oh, like you're those guys. Like I played your song on the radio. I was like, oh, crazy. And then,
we didn't know that at the time.
He said he said we didn't label the songs on that particular CD. And then, we met him again at some other show and gave him another CD and that would be, Rumble in the Jungle and Under Your Skirt. And then, we were with Mad Decent for a long time. Shout out Wes. He's like been the man,
Yeah. Well, and he loves you guys too. He was talking to me the last time I saw him about some night you and he had in Miami. I don't even know if it was recent or not, but
I just we were staying at the same hotel and I just sort of like tagged along to his. He was playing like 6 different shows that night.
Of course.
It's pretty wild.
Standard night.
Yeah. I get exhausted looking at his Instagram.
Oh my God. Yeah. I don't understand how he lives. It's insane to me.
Yeah, but he pretty much just let us do whatever. He was always supportive of our stuff.
Yeah, I think
I'd like send him an EP and he would be like, I'm down. It's like, there's no way you listen to that.
Well, I even remember.
And then there was all the block parties. Like,
I was about to bring up the block parties because I remember there was one year where I was at a block party that you guys were playing. He was there.
I remember this. It was like San Diego.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a random memory, but I just remember you guys were about to go on stage and I just saw Wes West like run up to you guys and just, I think he like put his hand on your shoulder, like gave you a hug or something. He was like, hey, have a great set. Go out there, have fun. It was like the most animated and happy I'd ever seen him look. And it was not a way I was used to seeing him act with like other artists.
I have no recollection of that.
I mean, I wouldn't expect you to. I don't know why I remember it, but
one thing I do remember from that night though is somebody hit the cryo
yes,
for like,
God, I was
like
hoping we were talking
15
about
straight minutes. And it was like scary. It was like, yo, I can't see anything.
Okay.
And then it was like,
okay, sorry, I remember.
It was like, is this going to stop? Like, is somebody doing this to like assassinate somebody in the club?
No,
Because this is weird.
You know who else was there?
Nobody could see a thing.
Waka Flocka.
Yeah, okay,
was there.
so-
Yeah, Waka Flocka was there.
So we were all DJing. Like, I think you guys played, this was the after party.
We went back to back, like kind of.
Yeah, it was you guys, me, Kurt, and Waka Flocka, who every once in a while would just get on the mic. And I remember he got really drunk. I have a video of it. And he started DJing at a certain point, but this was before he was actually doing DJ sets. So he would kind of just like nudge the wheel and then cut the volume and shout something and then put the volume back up. It was adorable. And yeah, the cryo thing, Kurt and I still to this day talk about that.
That's a funny guy to be friendly with. Like, you know, it sort of blows my mind sometimes, like people that I know. Like we were on some like red carpet thing in Canada and he was there too. And he just like came up to us during an interview and like grabbed my ass. I was just like, and they're like, oh, Waka Flocka is just grabbing your ass. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Hey.
That's odd.
So
cool.
at the end of, that was the first time I had met him was that night in San Diego. And we hung out the whole night. He again got very drunk. And then at the end of the night at 4 a.m, we were leaving the club and he put his arm around my shoulder and just kind of like half whispered in my ear. And he was like, hey, I never seen a Jew turn up like that before.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was
He's
amazing.
awesome.
No, what a guy, man.
He came out somewhere during our set.
I mean, that
it was
during...
Ever After.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we play one of his? I can't remember.
Yeah, we played fucking house. No,
Hard in the Pain or something like that.
No.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's a party. It's a party.
It's a party. Yeah.
Yeah, that track's
Got a whole lot of money.
Yeah, man. He was so funny. That was during the time when he was filling in for Josh in Flostradamus. Do you remember that? Like
Yes.
they went on a whole tour.
Yeah. That was like the Mad Decent block parties.
Yeah. That was that whole tour. That whole run, that era was awesome to me. Do you remember, like, what do you remember? Because I feel like the block party era was sort of another special time in the scene for like those few, they did it for years, but I feel like there was a few really good years.
Well, I loved how the lineups were really diverse. I feel like we always tried to do that with our shows. And sometimes to our detriment, I was thinking, because it's like, I feel like some people, they do stuff with just people in their quote unquote genre.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, it helps the show in a different way. Like, you know, we took like A-Rap music on tour one year. Like we were doing stuff that was like, we were trying to be more diverse and represent different things.
Right.
I don't know if the fans like wanted that as much as, you know, some other stuff, but I think it helped. Like even getting with Mad Decent was like helpful for us to differentiate ourselves from like just, you know, EDM dubstep.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you guys put out a whole bunch of, I think, influential records with them during that time. And then it was not too long ago, like 2015, 2016, when you guys struck out, started Deadbeats.
2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
Northern Lights. We launched it with our album Northern Lights, pretty much.
Right. What was the thought process there? I mean, not only let's do an album now, but also let's start our own label.
Well,
did you feel like you'd kind of hit a ceiling at a certain point?
No, like we just wanted to do that for a long time. Like we wanted to put people onto the stuff we were into and basically just release stuff easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, we cultivated this following and, you know, it's so cool to be able to show them stuff. We wanted to do it forever and I don't know, like it just seemed like the right time with our album. It's also a great time. The industry has changed in streaming and all that. It's a lot easier to put stuff out now.
Sure.
You know, it used to be like...
without the label support.
Yeah, I used to have to get stuff in like stores and all that. I mean, it's a different kind of grind. It's the same in a different way, like getting stuff in playlists and all that stuff.
Right.
You know, to print physical copies, like there's less that you like could lose, you know?
Yeah. Well, and the Northern Lights album struck me because, you know, we've talked about how you guys kind of come with this underground mentality, which I think you're carrying through to this day. The album was maybe the closest I'd say you've come to sort of dallying with the mainstream, you know, working with bigger acts like Rivers Cuomo, Pusha T, that kind of thing. Was that an odd moment? Was it difficult to try to bridge the gap between their world and yours?
I don't know. It's with that album, like we had always wanted to do an album, and we've been like putting tracks away for it, but then it's like it wouldn't come together, right? And we'd put those some of those tracks would get released, and we were just like always wanting to do this artist album that, like, you know, we put a lot into, and like we couldn't sit on stuff for any longer.
Right.
And we were like, let's do it now.
Did it feel more mainstream? Did it feel different than what you had been doing in the past? Or was your mentality, you know, writing the music, collabing, was it sort of the same, just working with different people?
We wanted to make something that was a little more song-based. I remember that being sort of something that played through. It wasn't as much about like drops. Not that a lot of stuff was, but yeah, we were trying to...
Yeah.
We'd also done a lot of remixes, so this was like a chance to show people a variety of stuff that we could do and string it together.
Yeah, we had so many productions that we were making, just like that were... I think this has happened throughout our whole career, but there's so much back catalog stuff that people haven't heard, and a lot of that was like more traditional song-based stuff, like Zach said.
I think what I was trying to say is like we would hit these points where it's like, you guys need to put something out. And it's like, well, but we were saving all this stuff for our album. And it's like, well, the album's not ready. So it's like, then we'd have to put like some tracks that were going to be on something else. And then by the time we put out the album, probably only like 2 or 3 of the tracks were stuff that we had saved. And we still have a bunch of stuff like from that era that we'll put out at some point. Yeah,
you can always go back and kind of retool things.
Sort of like a lost tapes kind of vibe.
Oh, that would be cool. I'm so glad we talked about that cryo thing.
That was hilarious, man.
That was the funny. Kurt and I were joking that it was going to clear up and just everyone was going to be frozen.
Yeah, like in Star Wars. Like,
in carbonite. Because it really was. It was 5 solid minutes of cryo.
Yeah. Oh my God. Have you all seen the new Star Wars?
I haven't seen it yet.
Have you seen it?
No.
It's so trash.
I heard it was really bad.
It's so trash.
That's disappointing.
It's fucking hilarious, though. Like, I was laughing so hard.
Because it was bad?
Yeah. I mean...
all the main characters are gone. Like, who do I care about now?
Oh, and they're
no
like...
Vader,
they're
Luke,
shamelessly... They're shamelessly bringing people back into the fold for, like, no reason.
Yeah, fan
Just
service.
Like, the fan service is pissing off the Star Wars nerds.
Also, like, this Mandalorian thing, like, it's not Boba Fett. It's just some other guy with a helmet.
Boba Fett. His southern cousin. Yeah.
Boba Fett, fried chicken.
We hunt the best chicken. But no, what pisses me off about the Star Wars thing is with Disney Plus now, they're just turning it into what they're copying the Marvel.
Oh yeah, no. This movie felt like, that's funny you mentioned that, because I was like, there's some like Avenger feel going on here too, and it was so ridiculous, man.
Yeah, where it's just like, this movie's kind of fun, but it didn't need to be made.
Oh my God.
You know, sometimes when I think about the new Star Wars being whack, I think about how the first 3 Star Wars were so bad, like the prequels.
Oh my God, yeah.
They were horrible.
Yeah.
Like, and those were by
trash.
George Lucas.
I know.
The new ones, people, you know, like, it's because he's not involved. It's like, no, like, he fucked up.
Yeah, he lost the plot.
He tarnished his legacy already.
Right.
No, I actually liked the last 2. Like, I thought the last one was dope.
They were definitely better than the first 2.
Oh, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely better.
What was that guy's name who was just like some alien nobody liked?
Oh, Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
Least favorite character in the Star Wars universe.
Well, I mean, there were so many weird... I mean, he was Jamaican for some reason.
Yeah, and he's an idiot.
He's an idiot.
Like, fucking racist. And
There was like the weird Asian racist aliens.
Yeah.
There were like a bunch of problematic things, especially in that first one.
And the acting. Oh my God.
Well, because
Anakin, whoever, Hayden Christensen.
Yeah. Yeah. God, it was bad.
It's
nobody is as bad an actor as Mark Hamill.
It's a mix of the acting and the script. Yeah, no, it's true. When you think about the first Star Wars movies, they were badly acted.
Mark Hamill is such a bad actor. It's crazy.
It's endearing in a way when he does
it's fine in the first ones, but he's reappeared in the current ones, and it's like, dude, you don't have to squint on every line. Like, what the fuck?
The writing, though, it's just like, in my opinion, the Jedi are evil.
It's real bad.
Yeah. Anyways.
I think the original works just because of the ensemble. And I don't think the new ones have such a strong... there's good people
I used
in
to
it,
love Star Wars. I used to read, Star Wars books.
Same.
Get the one, the cross-sections.
The extended universe,
yeah. In the comics. I loved the universe of Star Wars. Learning about the different planets.
It's very cool. It's very cool. To this day, I think back, I'm like, creations like the Death Star and, stuff like that, those are awesome, you know?
Yeah,
and they stand the test of time. It's cool now to see how it kind of looks like a 70s vision of the future, you know?
Yeah, I do like... I like that we're getting to the point. It's about to be 2020. I feel like there's been so much sci-fi that was set in 2020 past that. Yeah. It's fun to get.
2001. That was a while ago.
Well, yeah. I think we just hit also, whatever year Blade Runner was supposed to be set in. I think that was a few years ago.
Yeah.
I think Judgment Day from Terminator already happened too.
Yeah, that did happen already. Skynet is aware.
Yeah. That plot line I haven't seen the newest one, but they keep messing with time.
And each one of messes with the canon of the last one. I think they just gave up trying to make it cohesive.
There's a Rick and Morty episode recently that jokes about that. Good. Yeah, with the snakes.
That was so fucking good. All right, I'll ask one more question about music, then we can get out of here. The only other thing I wanted to touch on is that throughout your guys' whole career, you've been super collaborative. And a lot of the times, I think the people you worked with, you were really early on, and they often went on to do really awesome work on their own or have big careers of their own. And I sort of wonder if you attribute that to anything. Is it just that you guys, your ear tends to lead you towards certain people who then go on to do well? Or is it more of sort of an intentional, are you trying to search out something specific?
I don't think it's intentional personally. I think we've always just tried to make our tastes guide us as much as possible. Someone we worked with the other day was he felt like this record that we did off a record we did with Getz, it was called
Already Done.
Yeah. He was like, oh, I feel like that would have smashed even 10 times harder if it came out now. And I was like, oh, that's I never really thought about that, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, we didn't actually collaborate with hardly anyone for the first probably half of Zeds Dead. We just really? Zeds Dead sort of a collaboration in a way, between us.
Between you two, sure.
And
that's interesting. In my head, you guys just always collabed with everybody.
There would be hardly anyone in the first years, but then I think we just realized that we'd met people and they were homies, and we'd play songs of other people in the set, and we were we could actually hit them up and see if they wanted to do a track. I don't think we thought about that in the early years. We were we didn't really come from a place of producer collaboration, really. No. I didn't know about that. Mm-hmm. And then I sort of saw that all our peers were collaborating with each other. But
definitely.
We still kind of didn't do it for a long time.
Right.
Now it's with the release to come, We Are Deadbeats Volume 4, it's us basically just hitting up lots of our friends and people who are releasing on the label and stuff, and just working on songs together. And
it's kind of the polar opposite,
right?
Yeah,
we were much more insular in the beginning.
But yeah, it's interesting how this all came together. It started as us trying to collaborate with people on Deadbeats, but it just kind of took on a life of its own. And this was actually sort of meant to be a mixtape precursor to an album, but then so many things ended up happening and it just became an album of its own. And we're really stoked on that. That's coming out in January.
Nice.
We've released a bunch of singles off it already. And then, yeah, so we still have this album in the works after that, but now that has to get pushed way back and stuff.
Of course, yeah.
And some other projects and stuff too.
Well, Deadbeats has become kind of a world in and of itself, right? You guys are doing branded stages and full-on, almost festival-like events. Is there any other plans you care to share about other ideas you're working on for Deadbeats?
I mean, more of those when we can get them. The festival stages are awesome. It's kind of like an ecosystem a little bit where people we release, like we try and put them in front of an audience as best we can too. And, getting those festival stages helps with that. And our shows, like Deadbeats is like a mini festival in and of itself. So we're just trying to, it's been fun to work on Deadbeats as its own project,
right?
Like to start something and try and build it with a different mentality than Zeds Dead.
Yeah, man. I mean, people seem super into it. And I think you guys are putting out some of the best music, like consistently. I think it's like a really steady level of quality on that label.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, man. Well,
it's dope that people are sending us like amazing stuff.
I can imagine, man.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff to filter through, but
we've been pleasantly surprised for sure.
Yeah.
Last question I'll wrap it up with. I was just thinking about this. You mentioned Zeds Dead is a collaboration between you two, and I'm sure that process has changed over the years. I mean, now you live in different cities. I'm sure the process of working together has changed. So in whatever way you want to interpret this, how do you think your guys' relationship has changed over the run of Zeds Dead?
Well, it's funny, even though we've moved further apart, the amount of time that we physically work together has increased. I think, as we said, we're more insular with just working Zeds Dead and not other artists. We were also more insular, me and Zach, like we both came, we were both just like, here's a beat I made, what do you think? Zach would be like, here's a beat I made, what do you think? And then we'd say if we liked it or not. I mean, that still very much happens, but we try to, if there's something we like, we definitely try to make it more of a collaborative effort a lot of the time. And that's had pretty dope results, I think.
Yeah. And you end up in the studio together a lot? Like you'll fly to one place or another? Yeah.
Definitely more often now than before.
Well, so that's the professional, that's the working. How do you think your personal, for you, Zach, how do you think your personal relationship has evolved?
I was going to say, Dylan was working on Ableton and I was working on Fruity Loops. So that kind of like was not the best for like a few years.
Yeah.
I mean, we made it work, but since I switched to Ableton as well, it's been... I don't know if I need to talk about it. Every time I start getting into like the minutia of like DAWs and production stuff, I'm just like, this is fucking taking the magic out of it completely.
And that's still the more professional answer.
Right, exactly.
I don't think either of us want to talk about it.
That's fair.
We still love each other very much, but obviously we've had like challenges over time, but like I think both of us feel super, super charged up for the future and don't see any end in sight for this. So
I mean, like we've been touring together for like 10 years, known each other for a lot longer than that, and like we still don't hate each other's guts, so that's a good thing.
Pretty fortunate.
And that's like, that sounds funny, but I think that's actually hard to do.
A lot of guys end up hating each other, so here's to at least another 10.
And musically, like I feel like we're in like the best place we've been in, honestly.
Yeah.
I feel like what's coming in the future is going to be our best work.
Thanks for taking the time to do this. I'm glad we slid it in the last minute.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad
of course, man. Thank you.
It was like a few times where it didn't click up.
It happens, man. Well, this has been great.
All right.
Peace. All right, that's the show. Shout out to Zeds Dead. Great to talk to you guys. Great to link up. For everybody out there listening, don't forget, We Are Deadbeats, Volume 4, the new album from Zeds Dead, is out right now on their Deadbeats label. There's a link in the description of this episode where you can go grab the album, get all of their tour dates, and keep up to date with everything going on in the world of Zeds Dead. My name is Willy Joy. You can always keep up with me at Willy Joy or at back-to-back-pod on all social media, or back-to-back-pod@gmail.com is the email address for any time that you want to directly holler at your boy. That's it for this week. That was a really fun one. Hooks and I already said we got to come back. We got to do a part 2 sometime. I feel like there's a ton more we could get into for a round 2 episode. I hope you have a great week. Take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, and I will talk to you next Tuesday. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.